I worked for a federal drug task force, and my primary role, my assignment at the time, was cocaine trafficking. So we would target large-scale cocaine dealers that were operating in the Portland metropolitan area. A lot of times that would take us as far away as Seattle, Washington, Texas, Southern California, Arizona. But we would go after anybody bringing cocaine into the Portland metropolitan area. And we were funded primarily by the money that we seized from drug dealers. And we were assisted by federal agencies such as the FBI, United States Customs, now known as ICE, and DEA.
And
There were more individuals,
Yeah.
but a lot of the main suppliers were Colombian nationals, Guatemalan nationals, any South American country that is known for dealing cocaine, we came across from time to time.
borders.
Probably it being imported, I would say, would be cocaine and methamphetamine, heroin.
And those are mostly coming from cartels?
Almost all of it comes from a cartel at some point.
Undercover.
Usually, our investigations were usually a long-term investigation. We want to identify who they sold to, where they got it from, their source, all the sources but below them. So we had reams of intelligence when we were dealing and identifying drug dealers. And then I would be purchasing drugs from these people.
Yeah.
And once, they trusted me, you buy smaller quantities and then you get up to, the most cocaine I bought at one time was 7 kilos of cocaine. And back then, 1 kilo was about $25,000. And that ensures a minimum mandatory federal sentence that they have to serve in federal penitentiary. And then once you have possession of drugs, you have probable cause to arrest the bad guy on a federally minimum mandatory quantity. And then search warrants are executed simultaneously on all the locations that we've identified that were tied to that target. Usually by myself or with an informant. It's hard to get a drug dealer to trust one guy, let alone two guys they don't know. So initially you're introduced by an informant that had a relationship with the drug dealer, and then eventually you want to get that informant out of the investigation, because generally informants are people that we have caught that are drug users, drug dealers, and they're not reliable in court, so you don't want them to taint your investigation. But you're usually by yourself, but you're not totally by yourself. Like I'd be in a house or an apartment or a parking lot by myself, but I'd be surrounded by agents watching me. Lots of scary things.
Yeah.
I was searched for body wire. Guns were found on me. I had guns pulled on me. I was fired on. One guy took a loaded syringe of heroin, set it down, and I was buying heroin from his wife, and he was a local outlaw biker. You probably heard of the Gypsy Jokers, but that's who his affiliation was with. And I was buying heroin from this woman, his wife, and I ordered a minimum mandatory amount, which is 100 grams of tar heroin, which is about $85,000 to $100,000. It was a lot of money. And she calls me up and says, "Yeah, you can come over." They had this little duplex they didn't live in, but they did their dope dealing out of. And I knocked on the door, went in, and he talked to me and said, "Well, where's," I can't remember her name, Linda, whatever, and said, "Well, she's not here. I have what you want." He said, "Well, I don't know you. I'm not doing business with you. So have her call me when she wants to do this." And he took out a gun, loaded 45 cotton logs of gun, and says, "Well, either we do business, and if you walk out the door," he says, "there's only one," he said, and then he said, "You're going to do this heroin." And it was loaded up in a syringe on the table. And he goes, "You're either, and if you don't do it, there's only one of two things you are. He says, you're an informant or you're a cop, and you're dead either way." And so I picked up the syringe, and they're hearing this because I have a body wire on. So the team outside's putting on their vests and their raid gear, because we were going to walk on the money. We were just going to let the money go and surround the house and then hit the guy later. But so I walk up and I said, "If you want to do business with junkies and get busted, then fine. I don't do business that way. I don't use this stuff, and I'm not going to use it to appease you." So I picked up the syringe and squirted the heroin on his chest and turned around and walked out. I didn't have a gun on me. because you have to hide it so well, you're not gonna get to it. And then if they search you, they're gonna find it, then you gotta explain why you had a gun. So I had to walk maybe 10 or 15 feet. It felt like about a mile with my back to him as I figured he was gonna shoot me. He didn't. Well, like I said, we worked at upper level people that were selling large, like a half a kilo, which is 1.1 pounds,
Yeah.
or more than that. And we didn't target anybody that was less of a dealer than that. We'd have those off to smaller local dope agencies, and they would work those cases. The only two that we got way up the food chain were, one was a Guatemala national, and one was a Colombian. And the Colombian, his name was Louis Kerman. To this day, he's a fugitive. And the other guy was Carlos Orantes, and he's the one that's doing true life in prison. But both those guys were the guy. They were the cartel. And they were bringing it up here, muling it directly. I mean, they had family and everything. It was a big enterprise in their country, but they were the guy bringing it to the United States.